and to the brave frogs of Wartwood, Sasha to the strong toads in the tower, and Marcy to the wise newts of Newtopia, winding up exactly where these three needed to be for the world to be saved. Was it destiny or sheer luck? What if things had come differently? The girls would definitely not be able to smile today. What if Sasha was teleported to Newtopia instead, while Marcy was at Toad Tower? In our considerations, we are going to follow the basic structure of the show, meaning that while Anne spends her time in Wartwood, first we are going to take a look at Marcy's experiences at Toad Tower and her reunion with Anne, before we turn our attention to Sasha in Newtopia and everything that comes after. Make sure to stay until the end of the video for an important info regarding this part of the story. Marcy is caught and imprisoned by Captain Grime after the Toad soldiers found her playing with some bugs in the woods. He immediately begins to question her harshly about what she is and where she came from, thereby making our small sensitive Marcy cry. Grime is perplexed and apologizes like the tsundere he is, but he keeps being cold and rude to her afterwards, so that Marcy doesn't want to answer any of his questions. Well, she doesn't want to, but in her clumsiness she does let it slip that she probably came to Amphibia with Anne and Sasha. Thus, Grime does not know anything about the calamity box, but is well aware that two other humans are currently in Amphibia. Just like in the OT, he does not report anything to Andrias. During her time in prison, she gets along super well with the toads who are supposed to guard her. Due to her interest in the toads as a species and in their culture, she questions them about their personal lives, their preferences and hobbies, etc. Only being used to Grime's strict working environment, they take a liking to her straight away, and later begin telling her about their personal problems. Marcy kind of becomes the star of the tower, as she manages to fix everyone's problems. One of them had back pain, another a broken axe, Braddock and Percy seek dating advice, and so on. At first, Grime is enraged his soldiers befriended the prisoner. Yet, after carefully reflecting upon the matter, he realizes that he has a genius at hand. A warm-hearted, gullible genius that he can use for his purposes. He puts on a whole act in front of Marcy about how sorry he is for treating her so terribly until now. From that point on, he behaves very nicely towards her, giving her everything she desires. Books, food, D&D nights, and a little freedom to explore the surroundings of the tower. All that to secure that Marcy does not suspect anything when Grime begins asking her for a few favors here and there. Over the following weeks, Marcy enforces the tower. At the same time, she makes it safer according to the soldiers' wishes. She also gives Grime advice without explicitly being asked for it, especially when he reprimands the poor soldiers. Marcy scolds Grime, thereby slowly but surely changing Grime's overall leading style and making life at the tower more pleasant for everyone. For that reason, firstly, no toad leaves their job and the herons do not attack the tower. Secondly, the toads become less wimpy and more loyal to Grime. The result of the armies and Grime's transformation is similar to what Sasha achieved. However, the big difference is that while Sasha taught Grime to be a better manipulator, Marcy truly triggered the first few changes in Grime's personality at this early point in the story. Unfortunately, not yet to the degree that Grime does not want to kill HP, but we'll discuss the effect soon. So, back in Wartwood, Hopediah decides to run for mayor, and unknowingly becomes the face of the rebellion. Not tolerating this kind of disobedience, Grime plots to get rid of him. The question is just, how exactly will he do that? He explains to Marcy that there's a bunch of wicked criminals in Wartwood he needs to capture, one being particularly dangerous. Evidently, Marcy is all fired up to lend Grime a hand, if it's about making the valley a safer place. Could this be the fantasy adventure she's been dreaming of for so long? Marcy comes up with a brilliant strategy to trap the frogs. We can't really determine what exactly she comes up with, but I'm certain the plan is different from Sasha's idea and is executed in the village. Firstly, because it would be weird if Marcy randomly chose the same strategy that Sasha chose out of probably hundreds of possibilities. And secondly, because deceiving is not Marcy's style at all. Just like in her strategic games, the army launches a well-coordinated surprise attack on the village on the day of the Frog of the Year party. Everything is going according to plan. Anne and the Plantars are cornered. But just as the toads are about to capture them, Marcy arrives on the scene and learns that Anne is there. She is confused. On one hand, she believes what Grime told her about HP being a rebel. On the other hand, Anne would never help a real criminal, would she? She has no reason to doubt Anne, who is calling out to her that they are all innocent. She would have liked to talk things out, but doesn't get the chance to, as Grime quickly ends the mission and everyone returns to the tower. Despite clearly taking notice that Anne is a human like Marcy and her friend, he throws her in jail along with the frogs, since she violently opposed him. The whole time Marcy tries reasoning with Grime. Even though he has taken a liking to her, who wouldn't honestly, he sees himself forced to threaten her with imprisonment too, to secure the success of his plan. Smart as she is, Marcy shuts up, quietly continuing her search for ways to stop the upcoming execution. Still, Grime is not stupid. While he does not rob Marcy of her freedom, he does make arrangements for her to be under control during the process. Just before Anne and the Plantars are taken to the top of the tower, Marcy secretly opens their handcuffs. She is able to do so because the Toad soldiers still trust her and don't expect her to pull sneaky tricks when she visits the prisoners. However, she tells the Plantars to keep them on until she gives them the signal to flee. This is an important moment between Anne and Marcy. Just moments ago, the relationship between them got weird, because from Anne's perspective, Marcy stormed the village and abducted her best friends, and Marcy is still unsure whether Anne has been living with mischievous rebels all this time. Marcy asks of Anne to trust her now, reassuring her she knows what she is doing, similar to how she did in OT Marcy at the gates. Consequently, they all gather on the roof. The execution goes down without a single problem, up to the last microsecond. Grime pushes HP over the edge. He's falling. That's when Marcy gives the signal to Anne and the kids, who proceed to jump after Hopediah. Their trust in Marcy paid off, as they can safely descend to the bottom owing to the safety precautions Marcy installed on the side of the tower. Some soldiers had been scared of accidentally falling down and asked Marcy to invent a contraption that could save them should they actually fall down. Grime totally forgot about that, or rather, did not really know about it in the first place, considering how little he actually cared about his subordinates' well-being until now. While the Plantars escape, then hiding for a few days before they begin their journey to Newtopia, Marcy does not accompany them. After having given the signal, she wants to run to the edge to check whether they are okay, but is held back by some toads in accordance with Grime's orders. Still, she probably could have shaken them off and fled if she wanted to, because in light of their relation to Marcy, they hesitated and definitely did not use all their strength on her. In reality, what she did not tell Anne is that she did not even intend to escape Toad Tower. Why? First off, she wants to make it up to Grime for destroying his plans. More importantly, however, she is saddened that Grime turned out to be a bad person. She can't give up on him though, because she noticed his good parts that lay dormant inside of him and wishes to support him in growing into a better version of himself. This is going to prove a long-term task. For betraying him, Grime imprisons Marcy once more. He is not only punishing her for crossing his plan. Interestingly, Grime is genuinely disappointed, because he had started to feel like the two of them truly do get along. Originally, to get her to regret her actions and to understand why she acted this way, he comes to talk to her on a regular basis. No one can win a debate against Marcy Wu though. They end up talking for hours, over and over again, while Grime attempts convincing her why she is in the wrong, justifying his goals and methods. She out-arguments compliments him every time, thereby teaching him about morals and compassion. She also learns more about Grime's life over the course of their discussions, and realizes that his current personality is the result of extreme insecurity. Suppressing the weak is his way of coping with being bullied by his sister for basically all his life. Moreover, during his time as a gladiator, he picked up the mindset he needed to prove himself. Prove that all toads are strong. You can probably already imagine where I'm going with this. Lecturing Grime about his issues doubles as Marcy reflecting upon her own experiences with friendship. How she has been treated, what her own insecurities are, and how she's coping with them. At the end of her long meditation, she can fathom why she made them all teleport to Amphibia on purpose, and concludes that she needs to be upfront about her actions. Simultaneously, she determines Anne and Sasha should also evaluate their past behavior, so that they can all apologize to each other. The days at the tower continue this way for a long time, until word reaches them that Grime is now officially deemed a traitor, for the Plantars have arrived in Newtopia and reported everything to Andrias. In response, part of the army, but not all soldiers, desert him. What remains of the Toad army flees, taking Marcy with them. Yes, we will address the Plantars' arrival in Newtopia and Sasha's time there in a minute. Let's just quickly finish Grime's story here. Just like in the OT, they are hunted by Yunan, but she is forced to withdraw due to the group of soldiers still following Grime. As a consequence of Marcy's influence on him, Grime does not fall into a depression, at least not in the way he did in the OT. Instead of pitying himself, being convinced he's a total failure, he enters a state of questioning his life choices, wondering who he is and who he aspires to be. Thanks to the absence of Sasha's slightly radical influence, Grime does not develop the desire to aggressively rebel. He confides in Marcy, illustrating in all detail what he thinks of the world. Together, they reach the conclusion that Grime truly wishes for reformation. Peaceful, legitimate social and political progression tackles his insecurities and satisfies his desire to secure that toads are not left in the dirt. This whole process makes him realize that he needs to accept frogs, just like he wants toads to be treated right. Doing this the peaceful way does not sound like the Grime we know at all, but keep in mind that he has already undergone most of the development that occurred over the course of all 3 OT seasons. Additionally, Marcy persuaded him that it is both the easier and more effective way to bring about true long-lasting change. Their plan is to visit the Toad Council to challenge them for the position of Supreme Toad. That way he could get into a position of power, enabling him to negotiate with Andrias near eye level. The Toad captains don't take him for full, given that they are certain little Timothy can't overthrow the council, and they even let him choose the challenge. Marcy would have liked to play Flipward, because she would be sure to win, but their choice must still abide by the way of the Toad. Therefore, they propose something similar to Flipward and to the traditional Toad battle, a mid-scale team-on-team fight, treating the whole challenge like a game of Flipward. Owing to Marcy's strategic orders, her, Grime, Braddock and Percy can beat the captains. The title of Supreme Toad Leader is officially bestowed upon Grime. Now that the pieces of their plan are set, they depart for Newtopia, seeking to debate Amphibia's future with the king. Before we discuss their arrival at the capital, we need to catch up on Sasha's experiences right after being teleported and on her and Anne's reunion in Newtopia. Right after being teleported to Newtopia, Sasha kind of causes mayhem in the city, being grossed out by the nudes. She can't wrap her head around being treated as the weirdo by giant talking amphibians and starts getting angry, before picking a fight with the guards and being arrested. A little while later, Andrias sets her free because of his great interest in the strange prisoner, having been imprisoned until a minute ago and generally having no reason to trust a monster dude. Sasha does not answer any of Andrias' questions, pretending to know of nothing. Still, she is treated outstandingly nice. As a guest of the king himself, Sasha grows accustomed to her new lifestyle. What does not go unnoticed by Andrias. Having realized he can buy her favor with power and freedom, he offers her an important position. Soon, Sasha has become a true member of the royal guard and ends up spilling the beans to Andrias. Though she doesn't know much, Andrias gets to know that 2 other humans and the calamity box are in Amphibia. Over the course of her stay, Sasha perfectly gets along with General Yunan. They even finish each other's
Scourge of the Sand Wars, defeater of
and Sasha develops her own epic introduction. Captain Sasha Waybright, thrower of parties, cheerleader of St. James Middle School, defender of LGBTQ+ rights. At first she doesn't notice the change, but spending time with Yunan has quite the positive effects on her. Yunan's loyalty towards her friends, her strong sense of justice, and of protecting the weak low-key rubs off on Sasha. For now, the effects are subtle, but with time and the story progressing, they will surface more and more. In contrast, Lady Olivia and Sasha are far from what one would call friends. Olivia does not even really like Sasha, but she also knows that Sasha's literally still a child. With that in mind, she does her utmost lecturing her about manners and general values. Obviously, Sasha does not actively listen, but when the time is ripe, she will remember Olivia's wise words about compassion, arrogance, manipulativeness, etc. etc. All these things apply to Sasha's relation to her friends too. For the time being, our Sasha is triggered by Olivia constantly trying to restrain her, and specifically does all the things she is not supposed to, including entering the castle's basement. Unlike Anne and Marcy, Sasha is not scared of the strange creatures she discovers down there, thus can take her time to thoroughly explore the place. She even stumbles upon the ripped painting of Andrias' leaf and barrel. Even so, she cannot yet make anything of her findings, since she has not yet learned about Andrias' ancestors and their connection to the box. Still, keeping all of it in mind, she starts getting a little suspicious of Andrias. After some time, Anne and the Plantars reach Newtopia. It is a happy reunion indeed, as there is no conflict between Anne and Sasha. Due to not having been exposed to Grime's opinions, Sasha has not picked up any anti-frog tendencies, and is quite chill with the kids. She's like the cool aunt you can do anything with, because she knows the city well and is influential. Following the fun time, Anne informs Andrias about everything that happened. In response, Andrias dispatches Yunan to hunt Grime, who later returns to report that she is not in a position to catch them. Fortunately, it is not long before some scouts discover Marcy and Grime approaching the city. The two are ambushed. While Grime is imprisoned, Anne and Sasha are overjoyed that Marcy has been saved from Grime's evil grip. Much to their confusion, Marcy keeps arguing that Grime has changed, having come with peaceful intentions. Especially Anne has a hard time believing that. Marcy gets angry with her friends for not lending her any support and for not trusting her, so that she cannot avoid Grime being sentenced to death by a gladiator fight. During the fight, Marcy shouts strategic advice from the ranks, thereby leading Grime to victory and pardon from his punishment. Having witnessed everything, Andrias gains a particular interest in Marcy, considering whether she is really smart enough to be a suitable vessel for the core. Following a lengthy presentation of Grime's plans that Marcy devised, pretending to actually care, Andrias allows Grime to establish a task force, consisting of Grime himself, Lady Olivia, and HP, whose purpose is to come up with ideas to improve equality in Amphibia. Grime uses this chance to apologize to Hopediah, who forgives him, paving the way for a rather unusual friendship. Besides, from this interaction, Andrias first learns that Grime has become new Toad leader. Thanks to his new position, Andrias is literally forced to grant Grime some of his demands, because if he didn't, the attempted execution of their leader would be reason enough for the Toads to split from the government and declare war on Newtopia. In the meantime, Anne, Marcy and Sasha get into a heated argument. Anne and Sasha do feel bad about doubting Marcy earlier. Marcy talks herself into a slight rage, confronting the other two with their past behavior. In her flow, she goes on confessing the teleporting matter. Unquestionably, Anne and Sasha are shocked, but somehow they understand, based on what Marcy just told them. They feel so weird about themselves. They can't even really be mad at Marcy. While they are at it, Anne and Marcy also address Sasha's problems. This is the first time they dare to oppose her, telling her so clearly what they think of her deep down. It's this particular moment when she recalls what Olivia and Yunan tried conveying. For the following few days or weeks, the air between them is going to be a bit awkward. But ultimately, now that they have gone 100% clean, spoke openly about their feelings, and all decided they want to become better people, their issues will be resolved before the serious events occur. At some point during their awkward phase, Andrias unveils more information about the calamity box and the recharging of the gems. The instant he mentions his ancestors traveled to other worlds, the suspicions inside Sasha are boiling up, making her heart beat like crazy, as it dawns on her that Andrias is lying to them. How was she able to figure it out when no one else ever did in the OT? Well, firstly, she had more information following her investigation. Secondly, she recognized her own manipulation techniques in Andrias' behavior. At this point, I'd like to enlighten you concerning the question why Sasha is currently not being considered as core vessel, seeing that she is undoubtedly clever enough for the job. There are two reasons. Number one, after first becoming suspicious of Andrias, she kind of began hiding her wits around him, feeling it is not the best idea to lay open all of her assets in front of potentially dangerous people. Number two, the core might not even want her. They probably dislike her strong will, as she would likely fight the possession from within and be a bother to work with, thereby risking the success of the possession with unforeseeable consequences. After their meeting, Anne and the Plantars return to Wartwood to get the calamity box. The episode after the rain plays out and the day of the first temple mission arrives. At this point, we are beginning to enter the realm of possible endings to this route. To be more precise, at the end of this what if, we will have discovered 9 endings that would make sense on this timeline, and each of them is more exciting than the preceding. For that reason, make sure to return for part 2 of What If Marcy arrived at Toad Tower and Sasha in Newtopia, as we will discuss all the endings in that video. In the meantime, you can go ahead and enjoy some of these single part Amphibia what ifs. See you next time.